What's good, everybody? Back once again, and more with some of this Hornets uh, thoughts, analysis. Anyway, so we got a number two pick, and with the number two pick, everybody trying to be like Scoot Miller, that type of thing. But within that time of everything, is that it's like everybody really wants Scoot. And so with that, pretty much we sort of control a lot of what could happen. I was like, and then I guess Portland basically based off what happens with the Hornets. But they was talking about like um Zion coming to like being traded for Scoot. They really like Scoot and and like that's one of the rumors. So take that with as much salt as you want to, but it's really been sort of like it's been crazy because I'm like a lot like seeing reading and seeing what people have been saying is that most people don't really want to do the trade for Zion for the second pick, and I get where they're coming from. Zion been hurt near like his whole career where he hasn't played. I don't think he played like 60 games or something like that. I don't really know. I just know that boy ain't there by the time playoffs show up. And not just the amount of games, but it's like the weight concern, which I mean, it's also due to the injury as well. They're all sort of connected. And, so it's like, do you want to take the upside and the possibility of what Scoot and Miller could be over somebody that, while is in a limited amount of games, it's still proven that when we see him play, he does look like a superstar. The Pels were like top three in the West last year with him when they had before. I was like, I think Ingram was still hurt, and I think even I was like McCollum was in and out, and at times and stuff like that. But and then once he sort of went down, it was sort of hard for them to keep it up. But I was like, I feel like that the fan the fan I was like the fans and all this really is like, one, not thinking about how the owner would think about all of this, and two, also of like Charlotte in general. And okay, so I was like, let's go with how I feel about, because I was like, I was like, let's just get out the way of like team fit. There's nothing there's nothing here. He'll fit fine. I was like LaMelo, he'll be in a lob pick and roll where he's going to have lob threat. He's gonna be a lob threat. Then you got him and Mark Williams and stuff like that. I was like two lob threats. Uh, Mark Williams is around to cover for any if Zion have like a little defense hiccup here or stuff like that. But he also can lead transitional breaks, and I was like, he also gets points in the paint a lot. And you also have enough shooting around him to where he's it'll get a little murky with him and Mark Williams, because Mark Williams doesn't really have like an outside. He doesn't have an outside game to really complement this. Like, say for instance, we had like Miles Turner or something. But but you could just let him go to work and Mark Williams just do cleanup or whatever. Because everybody's gonna go in and try to double team him anyway. And I feel like the Nuggets has shown that you can have sort of two big men. Like, yes, Gordon can shoot and be out a little bit on the perimeter, but he was also a bit on the inside as well too. But also Jokic can shoot. I was like, I still take that a little bit out. But I think he will help in a lot of ways as far as the team fit go. But I don't feel like that's a problem. I was like, if you get the talent, you just figure that out. They'll figure it out. The player will figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. Now, the things that where it's like, I think where the fans, thought process with the owner, how the owner might think of it, uh, maybe even the general manager and stuff like that, and just how the Hornets organization as it is as a whole. But the fans are like, no. Why would I trade? I was like, and his contract. I was like, and I get sort of the contract, but the contract doesn't. The contract bothers me, I guess, because of the injury, but it doesn't really bother me just because he's a max contract dude. Cool, yeah, and y'all sort of stuck if you have LaMelo, who's going to end up getting his max contract, and Zion, but you really aren't paying anybody else. I was like, Gordon Hayward about to be out the books. Okay, I was like, I think Kelly Oubre might be. I was like, I think he's a free. He might be a free, or he might be restricted or something like that. But I was like, and it's Kelly. I was like, Kelly Oubre. It's not that. It's not that deep for him. Bridges, you're gonna have to figure out that situation. How that might go. PJ, you would just renounce that dude and to let him be a free agent. Cody Martin's cheap. It's not big of a deal. And then you can fill in the rest of the spots. I was like, Terry Rozier, I was like, you might be able to fit him in because you're only paying like 2 people. So, and everybody else is on rookie contracts. But I think I was like, he would help the team also because Rozier would now be like your 3rd person, or no, your 4th person once you keep Bridges, just because. And I was like, him being like the 3rd, 4th person, that's where he need to be at. But with the Hornets, he's sort of like number 2. That's a little too much. But the owner, I don't see why he wouldn't do it. I mean, I guess you're like, oh, like the money I'm doling out, but I was like, you're a small market team. What kind of way do you pump up interest? Not only just having LaMelo, but you have Zion too. And look, Zion pretty much if he's healthy till like almost the All-Star break, guess what? He's gonna be voted an All-Star, regardless. So and especially in the East too. So I was like, boost your team up even more. But also him with LaMelo, guess what? Now that's gonna boost up the team because you might end up having 2 people that might be able to get All-Star. Granted, it's kind of hard for that if you're not like in the top like 4 or 5 or something like that. But you're guaranteed at least 1 All-Star. So that means that you're at least going to be at like, where people are going to see you constantly. So there's that thing. But it's also like, then it could also like show like, hey, LaMelo, see, we trying. Only that backfired if he keeps this up, and then like a couple years later, then it's, but is that a risk you're willing to take when you're like somebody like them? If it was like the Lakers, nah, you don't need to do something like that. But I mean, I was like, and it's sort of just depends because like a couple years ago there was the Knicks, they did it. Knicks now might not do it. But also from the general manager perspective, you're Charlotte. There's no free agents that don't come here, and if there is free agents that come here, you probably gotta overpay them. And also on top of that too, they're not really like good ones. They're really role players that that they gotta be starters or more for us a lot of time. So why not just go ahead and get somebody that that you got him locked for 5 years. Whether how that 5 years goes, you got him locked for 5 years. So you ain't gotta worry about like, oh, I don't like it here, I ain't right. Like, look, you ain't really in a position to be over here trying to dictate how to get out of here. I was like, buddy, you here for 5 years, and if guess what, if you ain't playing well or you hurt, tough. But also too that if everything goes well, then also why you leave. But also looking at that too is that like Zion was able to have them at the top of the West. So if you imagine that you got the Hornets, who's to say that you couldn't have the Hornets pretty much in the top 4 seeds? I was like, Boston will be there, Bucks will be back there, and I was like, maybe it'll be Cleveland. I was like, see what Philly does, but who's to say they can't have a top 4 spot? So that's also another thing to think about with the. And as a GM, it's sort of like you sort of got to think about these external things on top of that, and sort of like what I said in my little draft thing is the fact that we haven't we haven't really done a great job of really developing. I was like, to me, I'm like, does LaMelo really count, or LaMelo was just that dude? You know, we'll see how Mark Williams pan out. And I was like, we do. It's like we, and I was like, we develop somebody like Nick Richardson. I mean, not Nick Richardson, but Nick Richards. And I was like, I guess you could say uh, Cody Martin as well. Then after that, I was like, Malik Monk looks a lot better with the Lakers in Sacramento than us, and that could be a little bit of playing time and maybe just getting his stuff together. But then again, maybe it's just also just opportunity and he let him play. Sort of like with Book Night, and I'm kind of like, it's really weird that we have a top pick several times and we don't play them at all like other teams to see what you got in order to know what you got. And that's sort of how I felt about like people who seem like they got good potential in Thor and Jones. How was that development going to go enough to to where you want to see this going before you just like? I mean, I like not to write them off, but you also just like how long you want to do this. And this is sort of the part where it comes to the fan. With the I was like, with how we sort of have developed and how we sort of been a bottling team and stuff like that, do you just want to keep like LaMelo about to sign up at his extension soon? So that means that we're going to have him for at least this year and then 5 more after that. Do you want to keep on sticking with these players to see who really like develops and come out? I feel like you could do that when you got like 1 or 2. But the Hornets have been doing that for so we got several players. Just alone, we're gonna get. I was like, we don't do the Zion thing. We got this pick. Then we got another pick. I think 14 or something like that. And then like a couple. Then there's a couple. So I'm like, we don't have that many spots to be developing all these young dudes. So something's gonna have to give. And do you just want to be a team that's going to be like the Rockets, where we just keep getting young people and just like, or they're gonna be like OKC, where if LaMelo can take that step like Alexander did, Shay, but then it's like who? But then it's like who's our Giddy? I was like they got Dort to boast up. Jalen Williams was a top rookie. They got Cameron Williams. They got they got people, and but they let them play, and they let them, and you get to see who to keep. Who can we also probably package and flip up? Because I was like, guess what? Giddey won't go anywhere. Dort probably won't go anywhere either because he doesn't. He fits in with Jalen Williams not going anywhere. I was like, they had Isaiah Joe at some point. Like they got players, and then you just go do that for a while. You're just gonna be like, all right, cool. With these picks and stuff like that, we're gonna get a star. So they're gonna get a star. I was like, if they ain't have like Chet, and somebody was like trying to throw Zion at them with the amount of picks and all that other stuff they got, I feel like they do it. So when they hitting on their draft picks, or we hitting on our draft picks, and do you want to keep on doing that till you just like, till you just don't even to me, I'm like, this sounds like we're just gonna keep being at the bottom of the thing. Cause I'm like, are you gonna beat out Indiana with Halliburton and Turner and Benedict? Are you gonna beat out the Magic with Boncaro coming up, Wagner? I was like, they still got like Suggs in them. Like, are you gonna be able to overtake them? Now that is right. It really just look like we're just gonna beat Washington and Detroit, and Washington gets rid of Beal. And I was like, at least with Detroit, they over here gathering assets, and they're gathering. I was like, I don't know if all that stuff gonna fit, but they so I feel like the Hornets sometimes it's like it's really weird. Like we either we're overly expensive for players that should not be expensive, or we're very cheap. And I feel like you could do cheap if you got max player, but you don't really have max players, so but don't I like. But also, I feel like we might get stuck in overpaying people with like PJ and Bridges, probably his contract as well. So wouldn't you rather just sort of have the possibility of LaMelo and Zion, and also too, if one of them gets hurt, the other one might be there. They might be hurt at the same time. I'm just saying, I'd rather almost take my chances and see how that goes for a good 2-3 years instead of just the 2-3 years where not only are you not good, but you're not even fun to watch and you're just nowhere. And that's sort of a scary thought if you're sort of the Hornets. So I get where people come from with the contract and stuff like that, but I'm like, that's not how owners think. And I feel like if I'm going to go watch the Hornets, would I rather have the possibility of maybe seeing LaMelo and Zion, or do I want to see LaMelo want the draft pick and a team that's not going anywhere? And now at some point when it starts getting expensive, you got to start making some different type of decisions. But anyway, that was just my take on the whole Zion news. I was like, if they want Scoot, how what do we do if we the ones that have that ability, to let them get into that spot, And I'm like, if Portland has a chance, you don't think they might try to get Zion? But anyway, if you like any of this, and then you got something to say, hey, cool. Go ahead, and let me know. But also, I appreciate it. Thanks. If not, if you didn't like this, hey, maybe next time. But until then, peace. I'm out.